our panelists, but I will introduce myself. My name is Erica Francois, and I'm the Fair Futures Youth Advisory Board Coordinator. And I'm excited to see what everyone has to say about their experience being a student and being in care. So we're going to have our headshots and our bios presented here also so that all of the attendees can see it. They can see who you guys are. And I'll be glad to introduce you guys once we're ready to go. So I'm just going to wait for the bio and headshots to come up, and then I will begin to ask your questions. That is me. And our first speaker is going to be Constantine. Hi, Constantine. Thank you for being on here. And so the first question that I'm going to ask you is, what are some of the challenges that you face being a student and being in care? And if Congressman Jamal Bowman has a question to ask, he will ask you as well. So.
I think the hardest part for being in care was, to leave my home. It made it hard for me and my sisters to cope, especially hard with schoolwork. I hated hearing the words that, that we was gonna move, and I was shocked because I was new to all this and stuff, and I didn't know what's going on. But there was times when I left my home to go stay with friends, because, it was hard to leave behind memories, memories with your family and moving to foster care, But when I was in foster care, I had an educational specialist. Her name was Francesca. She helped me with my school. Oh, my bad.
Where did Constantine go? No, did we lose him? Oh my goodness.
He'll be back. He'll be back.
Okay, he'll be back. So I guess I'm gonna move on to.
He's back.
Is he?
Oh, my bad. It shut off. My bad.
Okay, you're back, Constantine. Okay, continue.
Oh, but as I was saying, educational specialist, Miss Francesca, she helped me out with a lot of stuff for my school. But foster care is complicated, I made some bad choices that with my friends, and that landed me into a detention center. When I was there, I had to learn about, how to express my feelings in a positive way, because, when you go outside and you tell somebody you're in foster care, they'll look at you a certain way and be like, oh, wow, this guy's in foster care, and, yeah.
So is there anything in particular that was specifically difficult? I know, like you said, moving out of your home. So that's when you first went into care. Is there anything else that you've struggled with other than the wrong company, moving out, the time?
I struggled with, just being a kid in foster care. I was 12 when I went to foster care, and I'm 14 now. And when I went to foster care, I only met this one lady, Miss Nation. She's been my foster mother for the rest, since I've been here. And, she was good, she helped me what I need help with. And, she made me feel home, like I'm home. So that was good.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So I realized what I'm going to do now is, as each person is going to speak, I'm going to introduce them. So I didn't get to share who Constantine is. So Constantine is our middle school student. He's a spirited 7th grade middle school student at the Bronx Academy of Letters, and his career goal is to become an entrepreneur and enjoys anything dealing with business. So thank you for sharing your experience. And I don't know if you have a question, Congressman.
Yes, Constantine, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. You are incredibly confident and articulate for a young man in the 7th grade. I used to be a middle school principal, and I know how hard it is to get certain 7th graders to express themselves. So I really appreciate that. Can you speak to how supportive the school was? I don't know if they were aware that you were in care, but can you talk about the school environment and how, what did the school do well in terms of making you feel at home in school, and what could they have done better?
I think my school actually cared. When I first went to Bronx Academy of Letters, I was missing school. I was, not doing what I was supposed to. And my teachers, they had, confidence in me that, I can change and stuff like that. They helped me, I have a therapist in school. She helped me, she guided me, with my way. Every day we have a conversation. And, I can ask for more.
That's great. Listen, if you've never told your therapist in school that, or that school that, please let them know, because I've heard so many, bad stories about how kids do not feel cared for in our school system. So the fact that you feel cared for in that school, please let them know that, because it will inspire them to continue to provide care for other students. So thank you so much, brother, for sharing. Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. And I also want to add that Constantine is part of the Fair Futures Middle School program as well. So we're going to move on to our next panelist. Hi, Rachel. Rachel is a graduating senior with the 3.6 GPA. Rachel is active in several clubs at school and an active participant in the ADP high school program. Rachel also participates in the New York Foundling Coding Bootcamp and is a Arisen mentor, and is also the co-assistant and in an intro to coding class, and she'll be attending SUNY Binghamton University in the fall. So thank you for joining us, Rachel. And it's a similar question for Constantine. What are some of the challenges that have arisen as a result of being in foster care as a student?
First off, thanks for having me. Some of the struggles being in foster care as a student is like Constantine, just, trying to be a quote unquote normal kid, because, I didn't have a quote unquote normal life with living with my biological family. And that was like especially hard for me in like middle school, because like like in regards to my cultural identity, like I'm Guyanese and my parents are Guyanese. And like I went to a middle school with a bunch of Guyanese kids, and like they were asking me, why don't you know this, that, and the third? Aren't you Guyanese? And it's like, how do I explain to them it's because I'm in foster care that I don't know all of these things? And it's just little things like that. It just makes a big impact on like your confidence and like sorry, I'm out of breath. I don't know how to talk.
You're doing well.
Like,
You're doing well.
But like back then I also didn't have I wasn't involved in like ADP with like the Fair Futures program, so I didn't really have like that support system and like people to talk to about how I was feeling. I didn't like join it until I think my sophomore year of high school. So yeah, it's like things like that. Like you really need a support system as a student to just feel, normal, even if it's like your own definition of normal.
Thank you for sharing. Do you have any other questions, Congressman?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I have a million questions. First of all, can we pause for a moment, and can maybe Erica, can you talk to me about what the Fair Futures program is? And I would love for then Rachel to speak about the specific impact of Fair Futures, but also the ADP program, because I'm not familiar with that program either.
Yes. So one thing I forgot to mention is that all of the ADP students here are part of Fair Futures, as well as I am. And Fair Futures is basically a coalition of child welfare agencies, foundations, and organizations, and they help foster care youth during their time in care and after care with any kind of support they need, whether that be housing, educational supports, having your coach, right? Venting about personal issues. And I've had a coach myself for 4 years.
Did we lose
So my
Erica,
coach has
or
been
did
there for me.
Was that me?
Sorry, what did you say? I think he's frozen. No. Oh my goodness. Okay. But yeah, I've had a coach myself. And so I'm excited to hear what Rachel has to say about her coach. I don't know if he can hear us. Hope you can hear us, Congressman. But Rachel, please share your experience with your Fair Futures coach.
I've had a really great experience with my Fair Futures coach. She's definitely helped me with like my confidence because I've always been, I've always, cared about my grades and cared about my schoolwork, but my confidence hasn't always been, up to par with my grades. It's especially during freshman year when I like transitioned to my mother's house and there was like a whole ordeal there. Like I was still in foster care, but I moved in as like a test run with my mother, and it didn't really work out, and it like had a really bad impact on my confidence, especially as a freshman in high school. I was sort of in shambles. And then, sophomore year, I joined Fair Futures and ADP. And like literally, like I remember during freshman year, like if you had asked me, oh, are you gonna run for like a student council or something, I would have said no, no way. But now here I am in my senior year, and I'm my senior class representative, and I'm like doing all these things that I would have never done like when I was what 13, 14 years old. And I feel like sorry, still out of breath. Still out of breath.
Okay.
But I feel like my coach Zakia, she like really had a major impact on me in that way because I literally can't even mention to her that I'm failing. I mean, not that I'm failing, but that I'm going to fail because she's always putting it in me that always have a positive mindset, always think highly of yourself, always just be hopeful for the future and everything, even if you're doing bad. And I feel like that's helped me, grab all the opportunities that I need to grab. And yeah.
Thank you for sharing. That's so beautiful. And I forgot to mention that also Fair Future supports youth from middle school into the age of 21, and we're trying to get the funding up until the age of 26. I myself am 24. And I can relate to you, Rachel, as well as you, Constantine. So just so that we can stay on track, I'm excited to introduce our next panelist, which is Cheyenne, also known as Pepper. Cheyenne is a sophomore at John Jay College and is pursuing her love for foster youth advocacy. She has 2 jobs working for a stockbroker company, and she advocates fiercely for Fair Futures, FISA, and CASA in her free time. Cheyenne is also a recipient of the New York Community Trust Scholarship and is a Hope Reichback Fellow. Hi, Cheyenne. My question for you is, what has it been like transitioning from high school to college as a youth in care?
Hi. I think that it's definitely been challenging. I know that most of the students in my high school, there were like thousands of kids in my high school, and there were like 1 or 2, if I'm lucky, that were in could understand where I'm coming from that were in foster care. It was kind of hard to like relate to other students because I had a whole entire different life, a whole entire different background than all of these other students had. Like, I know that some students they could just go home and be with their family, but like I had things that I wanted and bills to pay. So I had to go to, have a job after school. I had to rush off, and right after school, I had to sit down with my guidance counselor and say, hey, can I have a shorter schedule? Can I like squish this in? Can I take an earlier class so I could come out of school and just go straight to work because I have this bill to pay? Or like, things of that sort, because I'm in foster care and I didn't have those parents to give me what I want. I had to like provide for myself at that point. And kids my age didn't really understand that, which is understandable. I didn't expect them to understand that. And I felt like that was really hard for me because like which kid like really comes out of high school and is like, okay, yeah, I have to go to my first job, and then after that I have to go to my second job, then after that I have to go meet with my coach, have all these other responsibilities as a youth in foster care. And another thing that I felt was really challenging was things like transitioning from high school to college. They kept like bugging me for, the financial aid office kept bugging me for these documents of proof of income from my family. And I really didn't know who to contact from those financial aid offices to say, hey, I don't have parents. What financial aid documents am I supposed to like submit? It was really confusing and hard for me. And I know when I meet up with other youths at my agency, we'd speak about this and they say that's really hard for them too. And I was struggling. It was really hard for me to find all those things, get together with my case planner, especially because youth in care know that our case planner are really hard to reach. They have a whole bunch of other caseloads, things like that. And enrolling in college is hard as itself, getting those classes together where you're going into a whole new field as a freshman. And it was really, really hard for me. I didn't really know what to do. Then things like if they charge me for putting down a class that was in the winter semester, even though I was supposed to have, a fall semester, and then I had to pay this overdue balance because I made a mistake. That was really, really hard for me. And I didn't know how to, pay that balance. I didn't know who to turn to ask, hey, I have this $100 or $1,000 balance to pay because I'm in foster care and I messed up. What do I do now? And that was really, really hard for me. Like the documents that I said, that kind of thing was really hard for me. And I didn't know how to go about doing that. Like I talked to my coach about it, but the moments that I didn't talk to my coach about it, it was really, really hard for me to navigate transitioning from high school to college by myself. On top of that, like coronavirus happened while I'm a freshman. So I transitioned into college while coronavirus is happening. And that's really hard because to this day, I'm trying to enroll in classes and I still don't know who my advisor is supposed to be, and I don't know who I'm supposed to like contact to like just help me out with those kind of things. And that's really hard for me because just things of that sort. And I just like tried to sign up for SYEP, and they're asking me for these documents about income for my family. I don't know what to do about that. So just like things like that is really hard for me. And being a youth in care is kind of challenging because we have all of these different obstacles, and if one person doesn't know how to figure out those obstacles, they will say, okay, hold, I'll give you this person. And then you're on hold 9 times because they don't know what's the right answer when you're in care. So I think that's really hard.
Thank you for sharing, Cheyenne. And I guess one question I would ask you is, how has your Fair Futures coach been there for you?
Yeah, my coach has been there for me because if I have a hard time, I'd call her and she'd set up a meeting for us to like figure out the answers to those type of things. Or I, contact like Jasmine, my FISA, helper, and she would definitely help me navigate how to fix those problems. And, I wouldn't just like Rachel said, if you asked me a few years ago, would I be advocating? Would I be having 2 jobs? I would have been like, no. But, my coach has always been there for me. And like to this day, I've been advocating since I was 15 years old, since the day I stepped into care. And I don't think I would have been doing that if I wasn't so passionate about having, you know, my own coach, and for every other youth in care to have their own coach to like help them take those steps to be successful in the future.
Thank you, Cheyenne. So Congressman Jamal Bowman, do you have a question for Cheyenne?
You don't have to say my full name like that. Just say
I'm sorry.
Congressman Bowman or Jamal, either one works. How you doing, Cheyenne? Good to meet you. Sorry I dropped off for a minute. I missed the beginning of what you were saying, but I think I get the gist. It sounds like, and Erica, you were answering this before. Explain to me what Fair Futures is and what it does. Can you go back to that answer? Because that was more my question. And then ADP, I don't know if we ever got an answer for that, or if I heard it.
Yes. So Fair Futures is a coalition of 100 plus organizations, child welfare agencies, foundations, and they assist you. Well, I could also introduce Katie. I think Katie's going to speak later on, but they assist you with education, with housing, any kind of support that you need, any support that's necessary for you. And the model supports youth from middle school until the age of 21. And we're trying to get funding to support youth until the age of 26. So they support you while you're in care and after you transition out of foster care. Katie's going to speak a little bit about that towards the ending, but Katie, I'm not sure if you want to add anything also while Congressman is here.
I mean, I can wait to the end. I was going to ask Cheyenne. Cheyenne, is this Fair Futures, is that like the org that you would like call if you had any challenges with anything? I know you mentioned just trying to navigate a phone system, and it's just overwhelming, you know, as well as many other things. Who helped you navigate that stuff?
I mean, Fair Futures, when I stepped into foster care, my agency like put me with a coach. So I had a high school coach, and then when I got into college, I got a new coach. So my coach is just there for me always, just, you know, every day you just give them a call and be like, can we schedule a meeting? Or, hey, I want to talk to you about like simple things like my boyfriend problems. They're supposed to be there to help you. Like my coach, I told her that I wanted to go into therapy, and she was like, okay, I will connect you to the people who, you know, will help you do that. They're just there for you, as Erica said, like for different supports, whether it be emotional supports, educational things, like anything of the sort at all. I don't think I've not talked to my coach about anything that's been going on in my life. And to what I was saying before, I was saying like, since I go to John Jay, so being in John Jay, I know that you have to submit all of these documents that are proof of your family's income. And it was really hard for me because I was on the phone with like the financial aid office, and somebody in there didn't know what the right answer was. Since I'm in foster care, what do I do since I don't have, you know, a family? I'm like independent. And they connected me to another person. I think I was on the phone on hold for like at least 2 hours, and that was a struggle for me. And I've spoken to other foster youths, and they have had the same exact problems as me too. And it's really I was just saying that was really challenging for me. That was one thing that was really challenging for me, going from high school to college, not knowing how to navigate that by myself, and being, you know, I can't really see physically somebody in the financial aid office or any office at college, and that being really hard for me.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And my apologies. I think you asked me, Erica, if I had anything to add, but I'll wait towards the end, Congressman, just to give a, you know, an overview on the background around Fair Futures and what the model is. But I think you can get a great sense from the young people.
Yep.
Thank you so much, Cheyenne, for sharing your experience. Now I'm going to go to our next speaker, which is Trenay Khan. Trenay graduated from Stony Brook University with a bachelor's degree in political science and a master's degree in public policy. She's been in foster care from the time she was 8 years old until she aged out of the system in 2019, and spent most of her time living in the Bronx as a lead advocate for the Fostering Youth Success Alliance. She believes young people need to be heard, understood, and supported, and Trenay plans to attend law school and become a child advocacy attorney to ensure all youth in the system have a voice. Now, the rest is listed here so that you could read more about her. And now it's the same question for you, Trenay, except I have two questions for you. My question for you is, what are some of the challenges that you faced being a student and being in care? And then I'll ask you my second question. Thank you for joining us.
Okay, great. Thank you, Erica. Yeah, I would say similar to what everyone else mentioned. Like even before I got to college, I faced a lot of obstacles, especially like having to deal with a lot of moving and transferring schools, and not really receiving a lot of support from like the school's guidance counselor and even my foster care agency. Like the college application process, I was looking for help and I didn't really receive it. Like I had to go out on my own to like search for SAT prep, and things like that. And I feel like I could have definitely used a bit more support in that area. But then also when I did eventually get to college, it was even more difficult, being away and really not having the support of a family to have as a backbone. My agency, for example, stated that I would have everything I need for EOP summer moving in. And when I arrived at campus, there was nothing there for me. So like I had to like find and call relatives and saying, hey, like I need sheets and blankets and stuff just to sleep on. And like even like throughout my time in foster care, like when it came to things like covering my room and board and my meal plan, things that my agency was supposed to take care of, I really wasn't getting the responses and answers that I need. And it led to things like not having holds on my account and not being able to enroll in classes on time, or not being able to like choose a dorm room. And like these situations happen a lot to youth in foster care, and like we kind of don't really know who to go to. But fortunate enough for me, I was really close with the AOP counselors at Stony Brook University, and they were also aware of the needs of the foster youth. So I think that was extremely helpful, as well as FISA, the Fostering Youth Success Alliance. Like I began receiving funding from them in 2016, my sophomore year. And that really helped a lot, like with relieving the financial barrier and everything else that foster youth have to deal with. And as well as like with drama at home. Like for example, during my senior year of undergrad, my mom was really sick and she passed away. And I really didn't have a support system to go to. But I did like, even if you read more in my bio, I made sure I gained like leadership positions on campus and networked, and I really found a support group there that really gave me what I needed to eventually graduate.
Thank you for sharing. That's beautiful. My next question for you is, what words of encouragement would you give to others with a foster care background, or just, I guess, anyone who's faced adversity?
I would say the statistics, don't let them define you at all. Like I have a master's degree. I don't even know what the statistics are for foster youth with a master's degree. And like just keep working hard. And like it's hard because a lot of times we don't know the resources that are available to us, but don't be afraid to speak up and ask. A lot of times I spoke to my child advocate attorney, and when my agency wasn't really doing what they were supposed to, then they was able to reach out to my judge and really get things done. So I would say always use your voice. Like it'll definitely make a difference, and like just keep trying. Like it's not easy, like it's difficult, especially with us, but like we've been through so much, and just because you've been in the system, I know how strong you are. And if you keep like pushing and you keep your goal in mind and you get the support that you need, then you could do it.
Well said.
So I have a question. Trenay, is that how you pronounce your name?
Yes.
Trenay. Trenay, you and everyone else who's spoken so far, you all are incredibly resilient. Where does that resilience come from? Because it's not, everyone doesn't have that. Where does that come from?
I would say for me, I kind of felt like I didn't have a choice. Like entering foster care at the age of 8 years old, I kind of had to take care of myself a lot. And I kind of knew that if I don't do these things, then like what's gonna happen to me? Like if I don't support me, then I don't have anyone else that I can rely on. And then it's like, right now, most foster youth end up incarcerated or homeless. So I'm like, if I don't do what I need to do, then that's gonna happen to me. So it's kind of like, yeah, it's like the system kind of forces you to like be strong and resilient because of the situations that we've gone through.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Well said. I often say, youth in foster care don't need to be resilient. They needed to be safe, but we grow to be resilient. So thank you for sharing, Trenay. Now I'm pleased to introduce Dr. Brenda Triplett. Dr. Brenda Triplett's going to speak on her experience as a previous educator and a current care worker. And her bio should be coming up right here. She's joined Children's Aid as a director for educational achievement and partnerships to contribute to its existing strong foundation of advocacy and service to children and families, especially youth in the foster care system. The rest is there for you to read. I can't read everything, so thank you, Dr. Brenda Triplett. We're glad to have you here.
Thank you, Erica, and I'm really honored to be here. Thank you, Congressman Bowman. So like you, Congressman, an educator, you were a principal, so was I. I am a retired public school educator, 35 years in, and never expected to be here advocating for youth in care, right? You count down to retirement, and here I am, totally immersed and completely committed. The youth in care, so I'm bringing a couple things to the table. I'm bringing education piece. And then I had an opportunity over the last few years to learn about the challenges and the realities of our youth in care. And then I was a foster parent myself on two occasions, for a teen and then also for a baby. And so I bring, I come to it with a very clear lens. Our youth in care, they are scattered, this over 6,500 youth, they're scattered among 32 school districts across the city. And if you heard Cheyenne, I think she had said, well, in my high school, there were only a few. And so she didn't really have a group to connect to. And because they are scattered, they're almost invisible to administrators in schools. You know what? I know in my position as educational director, I've been asked to give workshops to superintendents in the DOE on this particular group. And every time I, do the presentation and I tell them that, you know what, there are chancellor's regs that speak to this, their rights. And I never leave without getting emails. Can you send me where the chancellor's regs, it says that I'm supposed to keep them in my school, even though the foster home moved? And I know as a school administrator, I did not know. And I wish.
Me neither.
Right, okay, so that's honest, right? I think I would, I considered myself always to be a woke, culturally sensitive leader. I wanted to think of myself that way, but I realized with this population, I didn't know. And I wish I had, because I would have made sure that I found out which kids in my school, which students were in care. And then I would have taken steps to make sure that my staff, that they were aware, those who needed to be, respecting confidentiality, but then we could have put services in place. I wish I had known that foster care was designed for temporary care, not long-term. So when you hear of teens that have been in this system for years, that is not what it was designed to be. And then something else I discovered. The disproportionality, the inequities, that most of the children who are in foster care come from poor communities, and they are children of color, from families of color. And it's not that those parents are abusing or neglecting more so than the others, but they are disproportionately impacted. And that really spoke to me. This has been, the last 3 years, quite a learning experience. The other thing that I want to say is that, when you know better, you do better. And it's a responsibility for all educators, administrators, teachers, to make sure that they understand the rights of children in care. And I just wanted to also speak about, I think one of the students, maybe it was Cheyenne, I'm not sure which one, Trenay maybe, but you spoke about going into transitioning from high school to college, going into a counselor's office and the counselor not understanding that there are certain privileges that you are entitled to as a youth in care, not looking at it as a liability. I get it, I get it. But the flip side of that is if you were in care one day past your 13th birthday, you can go to college, a CUNY or a SUNY, and have no expenses. And I mean, have no expenses. No, they'll get your room and board paid for. They will, pay for your books and the meal plan. How powerful is that information in the hands of a guidance counselor? Go ahead.
I have a
Tom.
question. Hold on. First of all, that's amazing. Secondly, how many youth in care, how many teachers and principals who serve youth in care know that piece of information? Because the cost of college alone is a deterrent for many kids in care or not to not even consider it. But if a young person and a teacher, counselor, principal knew this information, you know, if it was more widespread, we would have, I think, a lot more kids enrolling in our schools. So I wonder how ever present is that information?
So I think you hit it right on the nose, Congressman, right? So there's no measure, but I can base it on this. So over the last 3 years, I guess we have gone into the DOE, we've trained about, I'm gonna say 2,200 guidance counselors, social workers, and we asked the question. I ask, do you know what a chancellor, when we have a lot of our students are overage, undercredited, and so they lose hope, right? I can't graduate. There are alternate pathways to graduation. That information is powerful. And there are ways to get students out of high school and on to college, but you've got to understand there are alternate routes, and there need to be people in the schools that can take them there, that can navigate the terrain. So when we pose the question in response to your question, how many of you knew that? Because we give a survey at the end and we ask them, you know, did you learn anything that you didn't know? What didn't you know? Like almost all of the responses are, I had no idea about the bent that children in foster care, that they can actually go on to college. I wish I had known, because that was something when you are counseling students, it gives them hope. The bottom line, I just need to get you out of high school. And then we're free. We can put you on a road that will really change the trajectory of your life. Knowledge is power. And I'm going to, and I know I have just, the 7 minutes, so I definitely want to get this in. So yesterday, I'm with Children's Aid, one of 27 child welfare agencies in New York. Children's Aid Society, they've been around since 1853. We're one of the largest. They, along with other agencies, sent a letter to Mayor de Blasio and to our Chancellor, Maisha Porter, asking for two things. One of the things that we're asking for is an office in the DOE where someone gets it, where they understand what our youth need, they understand the legal rights of children and parents. Here's a mistake I always made as an administrator. I am sorry, I apologize, but here it is. When I had a youth in care who was removed to foster care, you know what went through my mind? Abuse. Wow, I didn't know that parent was abusive. But the fact is, over 93% of all children who are removed from homes, they're removed because of neglect. And what do we know about neglect? Thin line between neglect and poverty, right? And the city, right, we tend to remove children for neglect. Over 93% of all of the calls that come in are due to neglect. And I think back, as a little girl growing up in Harlem, my mom, she had to make some hard decisions, especially being a single mom. And perhaps, man, I could have ended up, right? It was a decision about working and having to leave me with my older sister, or staying home and my family not being able to eat. So I just think that was one of the asks, that there needs to be an office where all of those 6,500 children, and by the way, I know that the number's rising now because the kids are back in school, and most of the referrals, they come from schools. Most referrals come from schools. And what we also try to communicate to folks in school is that there's usually smoke before fire. So if a child is coming in hungry and you recognize, or smelling of urine, perhaps it's not abuse or neglect, but maybe there's an issue related to poverty. Maybe there is an issue, this family needs help. I think that having an office somewhere in the DOE that's focused on all of these children, because they disappear in the crowd. And while we do know there are clusters of children in care throughout the city. We pretty much know where those clusters are based on data, but they're scattered. And every life is important, every single life, and it's the responsibility of every school leader, in every school in every district, to not write off this population because, well, I don't really have many in my school. Handful, who's going to know? The other thing that's really important, and I know you asked when Constantine spoke, he said he was with Mrs. Nation, the foster parent, since he came in at 14. He was lucky. He's one of the lucky ones. I am telling you that children in care, they can move between 5 and 6 times. And during what's supposed to be short-term care. And every time they move, they change a home. We know from data and research that they regress every time, 3 to 6 months. And in high school, it's even worse. So there is ESA, Every Student Succeeds Act, that guarantees that youth in care can remain in their schools of origin. That means if Constantine had to leave Miss Nation's home, although he goes to the Bronx School of Letters and he's put in a foster home in Brooklyn, it's our responsibility to make sure that he gets to his school in Brooklyn, because school is the one consistent, the consistent place or thing in our children's lives, their family, their teachers, their community. And right now, the city spends how much? Billions on transportation. Yet, when we ask for transportation so that we can comply with ESA and get them there, oh, but there's no route. There's no existing route. But I tell you what, we'll give you a Metro card and then get there on your own. How do I give a third grader a Metro card? I mean, how do we do this? So here's an example where policy and practice don't align. I get the policy. I'm for it. Thank you for whoever, thought about this. But if there's no infrastructure, if there's no money behind the words, then you know what, staff like myself, my team, my ed team, case planners, we have to wake up at 5 a.m. and we have to, tend to our own families and then go pick up these children and take them to school, go to work, then go back and pick them up. And so is it the most efficient use of manpower? Programs, my last thing, programs like Fair Futures, it's a godsend, because what it allowed me to do with Children's Aid is expand my staff. So now I have more people on my team, and my team, we're fighters. Like, we're at the table when there's an IEP that's being negotiated and they're trying to put our kids in a more restrictive setting when they don't understand that it's trauma, not a learning disability. Hello, right? We're there fighting. Well, Fair Futures, I was able to expand my team. And Constantine is one of our students. We were able to provide him with opportunities that he would not be privy to. For example, every Saturday, we send him up to Dover, New York. It's a little internship on a horse rescue ranch. And so there he is, in his boots, and he can talk about it. But connecting with horses, I was up there with them Saturday. You see him walking around with the horse in boots that are not cool, but it doesn't matter, because he's learning about connecting and these amazing experiences. We would not have the money. We would not have the money or the means. So Fair Futures has absolutely helped me to do my job better. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for answering that. Dr. Brenda, we didn't ask you a question, but you answered all of our questions. There's supposed to be a little group discussion where we talk about, what kind of support and resources did youth need and what should be made available to them. And so Dr. Brenda kind of answered that. And I know we're running a little bit behind time, so I'm not sure if you'd like to continue leading the group discussion, Congressman.
No, I thought we were possibly going to hear from Miss Napolitano.
Napolitano, yes.
Napolitano. I know that she probably was going to share a few words, and then I may have a few closing questions and remarks.
Of course. Ms. Katie Napolitano is a nonprofit consultant and the co-director of Fair Futures. which is a coalition, like I mentioned earlier, of 100 organizations advocating all for foster youth to access the supports they need from 6th grade through the age of 26. Katie worked collaboratively with government agencies, foundations, and nonprofit providers to develop the Fair Futures model and build the infrastructure required to scale it system-wide in New York City. I am pleased to introduce Katie Napolitano. Hi, Katie.
Hi, thank you, Erica, and thank you so much, Congressman, for having us. I just actually wanted to start off and giving a little background around how Fair Futures came to be and what the model is. But just to piggyback off what Dr. Triplett was saying, before Fair Futures, it really was a crisis situation. ACS data shows us that 50% of 9th graders repeat the grade across all agencies. 50% repeat the grade. And often they don't have support with entering a best fit high school when they're in 8th grade. And it's very frustrating, to fall behind and to get behind your peers. And somewhere between that 9th grade mark and when they age out at age 21, 40% drop out and became disconnected from any sort of academic setting or vocational program or college or school. And that really was a crisis. And then when they age out at 21, only about 21% year after year had a high school degree or equivalent. And we expect them to age out, live independently, be economically self-sufficient without a high school degree. 3% get a college degree. And that is why we've seen, the system involvement figures that we've seen. But we know just by looking at this group of young people that they are so resilient and that they're capable of anything, going above and beyond and reaching their potential when they have that one-on-one support, when they have someone to meet them where they are, believe in them, provide them with support, and then help connect them to best fit schools, colleges, and opportunities. And that's what the Fair Futures model is really all about. I'm just going to quickly share a couple of slides with you. So given all the needs that Dr. Triplett so beautifully outlined, and it really wasn't, the DOE wasn't cutting it, right? They weren't getting the supports that they needed in the school system. So a group of organizations and foundations, including all the foster care agencies, really got together to advocate for this Fair Futures model, which starts in 6th grade and sticks with kids no matter what until age 26. And the model provides one-on-one long-term supports, which I'll outline just briefly in a moment. So this advocacy campaign was launched, and Erica leads our advocacy campaign. It's fully youth-led. We have a youth advisory board, and she and the other young people were successful in getting first $10 million and then $12 million in New York City funding over the last 2 years. But as Erica mentioned, this funding does not include, there's not a dollar for young people who have aged out of foster care, including for Erica, who is 24 years old. So that's really a big focus of ours going forward, is to try to secure funding for the young people who have aged out and who might not have had these Fair Futures supports that all these young people currently on this call have had. And so the Fair Futures model, after we got that funding, was fully implemented across the entire foster care system at Children's Aid and the other 25 foster care agencies. Over 350 staff were hired and trained, mostly during the pandemic, and they had this enormous challenge of engaging young people during the pandemic. And I purposely didn't put it on this slide, but I wanted to share with you, Congressman, that by the end of the year one, 99% of those young people who had a coach, a Fair Futures coach, engaged with their coach, which I think is a tremendous testament to the importance of the model and to really it being centered around young people. These are the goals of the model. It's a pretty comprehensive one. We want to help young people build these trusting relationships and a network of adult support. So not just their coaches, but they have one-on-one tutoring, and they have educational specialists and college specialists, and there's housing specialists. We want to help them prepare for and graduate high school, persist in post-secondary settings. This can be college or vocational programming. Build career development experiences every single year, do career development exploration. And if they are aging out of foster care, make sure that they access and maintain stable housing and gain life skills. And to do that, this is kind of the model in a nutshell. There's a middle school component that we mentioned. Dr. Triplett's team has a number of middle school specialists, and including the young man who Constantine who is on today. They have dedicated middle school specialists who provide educational advocacy with the DOE. They help connect students to after school and summer activities. And I think a really innovative part of the Fair Futures model is they really help provide that one-on-one assistance to those 8th graders so that they can get in a better fit high school and hopefully, half of them not repeat the 9th grade. It also includes one-on-one quality tutoring. These tutors are trauma-informed. The engagement levels are very high. We would hope that this would have been a model that the DOE would pick up to have in-home quality tutoring for these students. And then there's a coaching program that starts in that critical juncture of 9th grade, sticks with kids until age 26 if we get public funding. Right now it's just until age 21. And coaches really are the ones that build these like deep trusting relationships with young people, like Cheyenne and Erica have had coaches and mentioned. They meet them where they are. They help them with their academic and career goals, connect to opportunities in line with those goals. And hey, if something doesn't work out, they're there as a safety net to help them reflect and then really take the next step on their journey, and to most importantly, celebrate their successes. So that was it in a nutshell, Congressman. Thank you so much for having us. And we're really just trying to advocate to baseline the current funding we have for Fair Futures, and then try to get additional funding going forward for these young people who are going to or have already aged out.
Thank you very much for that. I have one or two follow-up questions, but I see we have another panelist, Miss Jasmine Hooper, excuse me, will speak on the FYSA program.
Yes, thank you, Congressman Bowman, and I want to thank your staff also for organizing this conversation. I'd also like to take the time to commend Dr. Brenda Triplett for preaching just now. I think we could have played the Nas ether beat behind you. that was good. And also thank you to the youth that are on the line. I just really appreciate hearing and you all sharing your perspectives and allowing us to just really nurture this conversation on the educational needs and experiences of youth in care. I also am a foster youth alum, just like those of you on the line. But I do want to talk a little bit about the Foster and Youth Success Alliance, also known as FYSA. So we were launched in December 2013, and the Foster and Youth Success Alliance is housed within the Office of Public Policy at Children's Aid. And we're a statewide alliance that is working on improving the socioeconomic, health, housing, and educational outcomes of youth in care and those aging out of care in New York State. We work with, we collaborate with other child welfare organizations, advocates, and New York State agencies as a part of our coalition. And one of our largest initiatives would be the Foster Youth College Success Initiative. And I think that Dr. Triplett was kind of mentioning FYSA without saying it, but our initiative provides academic and financial assistance to address the gaps that youth like Cheyenne, Trenay, and even Dr. Triplett illustrated when youth need support with those random expenses, with housing costs, with tuition, or when they need the academic support the academic and the emotional support that Trenay and Cheyenne both mentioned. FYSA supports with that. And so again, this funding can be used for the traditional costs, tuition fees, books and housing, but we've actually have been working with our legislators to change the language where now the money can be used for some unpaid medical expenses. And that was very timely that legislative ask was implemented right before COVID. We're very thankful for that. And currently we have about 1,100 youth accessing the program. It's a very low threshold, low barrier program to where, like Dr. Triplett said, any youth who has spent even one day in care after their 13th birthday, even if they're coming from out of state, if you spent any amount of time after your 13th birthday in care and you're in New York and you are attending a participating school, which is definitely all CUNYs, all SUNYs, and some privates, you are eligible for this funding and this support. So, FYSA student advocates like Trenay and Cheyenne and even alum Erica Francois definitely totally illustrate the importance of programs like FYSA and even Fair Futures as well. So I'm definitely happy to answer any questions that you may have, Congressman.
So thank you so much for that. First of all, please send, if you can, a XX t-shirt to my office, please, because I definitely want to rock that t-shirt. That would be awesome. Another question, this is from my chief of staff. It's a policy question. So what can we do, I'm paraphrasing, what can we do from a policy perspective to ease the regression during transitions? That's one very specific policy question. I have another, which is a more general, like how can we be more helpful? I know there was some talk around funding, that piece, but in terms of policy, just what can we think of? So I guess, Jasmine, you could start and then others can chime in.
Absolutely. So, like Dr. Triplett mentioned, at the high school level or at the K through 12 level, the need for an office or just a point person like a foster care liaison who's really familiar and well-versed with the needs of youth in care is critical. And in the college level, it would be very critical if we could have a similar, a foster care or campus liaison at each campus, or it's a little challenging for the private schools, but if every college campus in New York State and hopefully across the country can have a liaison that a youth in care can go to on campus who can help answer their questions, just like Trenay said, when she was at Stony Brook, it was easier for her because the college staff were familiar. They were able to tell her about the types of like scholarships, supports, any resources that she is entitled to or eligible for. Imagine how powerful that would be if that was at every single college campus. And maybe a youth would feel more comfortable like self-identifying if those supports were in place. So outside of just more funding, to help again fill in those gaps, I would say the campus liaisons, and definitely I believe that schools should invest in if they know that a certain number of youth with a foster care background are coming into school, summer transitional programs like right before school starts, just to help the youth get acclimated, help them fill out all the complicated and confusing paperwork, just make sure they're all squared away before school starts, would be very helpful. Mm-hmm. So I'll pass it along to another panelist who'd like to answer the question.
I agree with everything Jasmine and Dr. Triplett said. I think that those are fantastic policy suggestions, and just having, even if it was just one person at the DOE who really deeply understood these issues and could better liaise with all the amazing Fair Future staff that are in place already, it would go so far. So thank you, Congressman, for hearing us out.
Yeah, it also seems like we just need trauma-informed practices throughout all of our systems. So like throughout the K-12 system, for every teacher, every counselor, every administrator, throughout the district, from the superintendent to all of the superintendent staff, to a person, maybe in each district, but definitely at central at the very least. And it seems like our higher education spaces need to also be much more trauma informed, because Dr. Triplett made a great point. We're talking about this is all a result of poverty and historical poverty, and poverty leads to trauma, and trauma leads to needs being met in the care space, in our overall spaces. So I think trauma informed practices need to be dramatically increased across the system. Does that make sense to you all?
Yes, absolutely. I was going to also add, I think you got it, Congressman, right on the nose. That was what I was going to say. Making sure that there's training across the board in every school district, whether there's a foster, one single child in a school district or not, there should be mandatory training. And so that people are in the know. When they spoke about, one of the college students spoke about filling out that form, and they kept asking her over and over again for proof of income. Well, there's an IRS letter, and during COVID, the IRS was closed. And so students couldn't get that proof, and yet they had to meet the deadlines. So in terms of policy, I think there needs to be someone at the table where policies are being made. There needs to be someone at the table representing the interests of this group. And usually there is no one at the table when policies are being created. And I think that's a problem. That's a huge issue.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Well, everyone said such amazing things, but I definitely can 100% agree. As the oldest of four younger siblings who I've watched go in and out of the system in residential treatment centers and hospitals, I've had to be their advocate for a lot of those people who were uninformed. So I know we're coming to a close. We're like a minute over time. I just want to thank everyone for coming out. This was a great discussion. Thank you to all the panelists, all the youth who bared their souls and shared their experiences. Thank you, Congressman, for being able to be here with us. Thank you, everyone. Does anyone have any last words?
Just want to say thank you again to everyone on the line. This has been such a fruitful conversation. I feel like I'm amongst giants right now. So just really glad and hope, Congressman Bowman, that this was a powerful conversation for you, and that you can look at, FISA, I'm sure, Fair Futures, and just everyone, Children's Aid on the line as partners, and to support you, on this journey. And as you, focus on your education and your, workplace goals, just definitely please consider us a partner in the future.
Yeah, I appreciate that. But if I don't get a T-shirt, I ain't doing nothing. So y'all gotta.
That T-shirt.
We have to get you a Fair Future shirt as well.
Yes, I need double XL. I'm gonna lose some weight, but not yet. So double XL. But no, this is the beginning of an ongoing conversation, and we're gonna be. I'm a former educator, so all of my policy is rooted in education or children or vulnerable populations overall. So we're going to need to continue in conversation, because anything we advocate for and any policy we're introducing and fighting for, I'm going to need your voices to be a part of that conversation. So Nicholas will get us set up with a follow-up so that you all can meet with our legislative team, and we could talk about what legislation we could be advocating for on the federal level, because this was a great conversation, but if it's the only conversation, we haven't done our job. So we have to have a lot more. So I look forward to, Nick will get us set up and get the ledge team on it, and we'll keep working together in collaboration. So thank you all so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you, Congressman. Bye, everyone.
Love y'all. Be well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So much.